Hi, and welcome to Doing the Opposite, Business Disruptors, the podcast where you get to meet leaders who have swum against the tide, thrown out the rule book, and changed the way their sector does business for good. I'm Jeff Dewing, and I'm founder and chief exec of Cloud, a business where we thrive on taking risks so our clients don't have to. This episode marks the start of a new mini-series of Doing the Opposite, in collaboration with Proptech Connect, Europe's largest PropTech event, which hosts more than 6,000 global leaders across the real estate sector. Today, you're going to meet JP Johnson, a senior energy consultant at Symphony Energy, a company that provides innovative technology to decarbonize commercial buildings and optimize energy performance in the built environment. JP is committed to making offices, hotels, hospitals, universities into smarter, more sustainable and cost-effective spaces and driving positive change for the planet. JP, welcome.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Delighted to be here.
And of course, you're currently in Dublin, Ireland, one of my favourite places. I've got lots of friends in Dublin.
Good.
And of course, we love a proper Guinness, right? So especially when it's over there, because it's proper Guinness, not the pretend
The
stuff.
real thing, yeah.
Okay. So listen, can you just tell me a bit about your journey into energy and sustainability? You know, what drew you into this space?
Well, so my background is an engineer, and the founders of the company are good friends of mine. And they ended up with a solution that was just so attractive that when the opportunity arose for me to come in with them, that it was a no-brainer for me. My background actually is working in IT companies 20 years between Microsoft and Oracle, and the opportunity to come in with these guys, they are truly disruptive, and the company has been finding ways of decarbonizing buildings that they're actually hard to believe. It's been such amazing results.
Oh, that's fantastic. I did actually have a good old look around the website, so I've got some curious questions to go a bit further in. What is the mission, would you say, behind Symphony Energy? You know, how does it tie into the push for net zero?
So what Symphony Energy identified 20 years ago is that the performance gap in between how a building is designed and expected to perform for energy consumption, that performance gap, which is there in virtually every single building, and surveys are saying it's up to 3 times more energy consumed in buildings than the design anticipates. It's a real issue. That performance gap can be closed, and the company's been closing it for 20 years. First of all, in a way that wasn't that scalable, just using the know-how of the engineers in the company, and then in the last 3 years, we found a way of making it scalable, and we also invented a few more really disruptive ways of reducing energy consumption in commercial buildings.
Great, interesting. So one of the questions, because my background is I'm also an engineer, have been since I was left school, and I love engineering, especially mechanical electrical engineering. But the piece that is a real issue for me, being in this industry for 40 odd years, is what are some of the challenges that you've actually faced, or the company has faced, Symphony has faced, trying to innovate in a historically really slow-moving industry of real estate?
It is challenging, and again, coming from an IT background, in the IT companies, their area of risk is not being innovative. Whereas in real estate, they're risk averse, and new innovation, they really wait until the early adopters have smashed or succeeded. And so we're certainly on the lookout for early adopter type aggressive companies, and we found some, and so that's great for us. So that's been the constant challenge. A new company coming out and saying we can do something that no one else can do in a risk-averse industry, that's a challenge. And you just have to be patient. You keep at it. You get case studies. You win awards. You meet people. They get to see that you're not a bullshitter. And you continually share your USP. And if it's something that's attractive, great. If it's not attractive, it'll be attractive some way down the road. And let's just keep chatting.
That's music to my ears, because the reality is the sort of people we are and organizations we are, we have to search for early adopters, which by default narrows the market. And of course, if you are claiming what appears to be magical figures, most people will say it sounds too good to be true, which means it probably isn't true. And I think that's that negative approach to life, rather than the curiosity to understand, well, how are you actually doing it? Is frustrating, not just for us trying to help people, but for those people thinking, why do you not want to be helped? And it does get a bit crazy sometimes. But how do you see PropTech, the property technology environment, reshaping sort of the real estate sector, especially when it comes to driving sustainability?
Well, at this stage, for commercial buildings, particularly offices and multi-use type of buildings, we actually already have the tech to achieve net zero. Um, between really good lighting, great HVAC equipment, kind of HVAC optimization that companies like ourselves can bring, and then fabric that really aids a building be efficient and avoids just insulation and that type of thing. We're actually there. Um, so we need to pull it all together. We need a few case studies of buildings that not EPC. The EPC promises so much, and really what you've got is an impressive asset, but you don't have net zero. So you got to get net zero examples to demonstrate that it's possible, and we're there. So prop tech actually is there. There will be better, improved prop tech as time goes on, but actually there's enough there if you tap into the right stuff.
Well, it's really interesting because I'm opening the event with a keynote on the Wednesday. And the one thing I'm saying is almost exactly what you just said. Guys, it's already here. We just have to join the dots, right? No one's joining the dots. And that's the key now. If we can join the dots, then we will have the biggest transformation we've ever seen. And that's our biggest challenge. Of all the things that you're doing, is there one thing within your innovation spectrum that is really exciting you, really getting you like punching you? Is there something specific that sort of gets you thinking, my God, this is really game changing?
I guess I guess the most exciting thing is taking buildings to 2050. So we've done that on offices, on the landlord side. The tenant side, of course, is another piece of the overall energy consumption. But we've actually got buildings to 2050, short of a heat pump. So when they put in the heat pump, they'll cross that line. That's very exciting. The other thing that's really exciting is we've always said we want to make this scalable. And so we've got an awful lot of IP in the heads of the founders. And so we've always known, yeah, this is scalable. We will get this IP into new engineers and we'll be able to grow the company. But we've actually done it this year for the first time. We brought in some young engineers, taught them the steps. They applied the steps, and we're nailing it now on a new project. So yeah, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. So here we are. We've actually passed on the IP to young people who are doing a really good job. So that's very exciting as well.
Brilliant. So what about, where do you see the biggest opportunity, if you ignore early adopters, because that's a given, but where do you see the biggest opportunity for PropTech to sort of accelerate this transition to net zero buildings?
The biggest opportunity. Um, it's the funniest thing. There are two sources of opportunity. AI. Everybody knows AI is. You didn't even have to feed that to me. We all know that
Yeah.
AI is presenting us with some extraordinary opportunities, and for sure, it's going to accelerate innovation. That is for sure. Whether AI itself delivers innovation, of course, that remains to be seen, and it's maybe Hollywood stuff if that happens. But for sure, AI is a great opportunity for us to move things
Mm.
faster, cheaper, and probably get better solutions quicker. So that's for sure. Another area of opportunity which I'm really really impressed with. It's a while since I got my university degree.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the Mech, Elec, Chem, Civil,
Yeah.
engineering degrees were
Yeah.
pretty, I guess, looking at it in hindsight, pretty limited. But now
Mhm.
the number of sustainability, energy engineers, all these great focused qualifications that young people can come out with. The third level institutions are really agile and in adjusting to the need and delivering on the need and delivering,
Mm.
latest thinking to young people coming out. So I see that as a huge opportunity as well.
Mm. Mm.
The other thing I see as an opportunity for our company is, ESG has lost some of the honeymoon. It has to deliver return on investment. It's no longer just about, idealistic hopes to save the planet. It's got to also deliver financially. And so for me, I mean, our approach, our business approach is we guarantee a return on investment. We don't actually have a price as such. We say whatever
Hmm.
we save in a year, you're guaranteed a 5-year payback because you just pay us
Yep.
5 times
Yep.
what you actually save. So for
Hmm.
us,
Hmm.
the higher energy prices go, the more attractive that proposition is. There was a
Hmm.
time when building and company owners would just say, listen, HR costs are really, really important for us. Marketing costs are really, really important for us. Operational costs, yeah, they're there, but they're not really important. But as time goes on and prices go up, that's an opportunity. So, even wars, horrible as they are focusing the mind on energy security, energy access, and the need to find alternatives that are still a sensible price, but there's no avoiding energy prices are going to go up. That's an opportunity for companies that reduce consumption.
Of course. And I guess, our model is almost identical because our model, our route to market is via energy because that's where the biggest wastage takes place. So that's how we obviously get into the market in that regard. And then we offer loads of other facilities after that. But what's interesting is in the UK, that's quite easy because energy costs are high. We've also got offices in Singapore and in Barcelona in Spain. And we've also got our kit in the Netherlands and in the US. Their energy costs are half our costs.
Yeah,
So therefore, the ROI is so much more difficult. It's interesting how things are going to change. But as you say, a war comes along, the world changes, right? So, but at the end of the day, we and coming back to what you're saying before, ESG. I'm very passionate about ESG. I didn't used to be, but I am now because I understand it. Um, but I also remember the EPC certificate, which used to be a valuable document. Now it's something that your kids write out for you, stick it on the fridge, and you then go and sell it for 20 quid when it used to be £1,000 to do a proper energy performance, right? But now it's become a commodity and it has no value and you actually don't believe what it says. And then you had the TM44s for air conditioning. And again, the same thing. It used to be quite expensive to get a TM44 because it was a thorough, intrusive process. Now, give me 30 quid, I'll give you a TM44.
mm,
So, and we're on the same similar journey for ESG if we're not careful. So, ESG should just be a business as usual process that we all do for moral reasons and for profitability reasons. Because if you've got a great ESG policy, it is profit generating. You're
of course.
reducing your carbon footprint,
Yeah.
you're reducing your scope 3, you're doing all sorts of stuff. So it's about embedding it as a normal everyday business as usual. But it's interesting. But anyway, listen, the next bit I want to talk to you
Mm.
about is you recently wrote about the latest real estate environment benchmark report and your frustration that the report outlined the very weak correlation between the modelled energy performance of an office based on its EPC,
Mm.
and its actual performance in use. Now, you touched on that a bit earlier, but
Mm.
you said, if we focused on the wrong deliverables, we're not going to get to net zero, which is a pretty obvious statement.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I agree with you wholeheartedly because,
Mm.
a architectural design or refit of a building has all of its principles in place to deliver. The reality is it always never meets those numbers. And there's also, because I'm an engineer, I've been involved in controls and BMSs all my life. And you install £1 million BMS, it looks fantastic. You've got these great graphics and fans turning, all sorts of stuff. You go back 4 months later and everything's turned to hand.
Yeah.
So it's a nonsense. And you think, why are we getting this so wrong? So how do you think, based upon that sort of little diatribe referring to your views on the report, how do you think we can flip the script on this?
Well, so the EPC being the thing that is important, the reality is for real estate companies, tenants look to the EPC. Tenants pay rent for an A-rated building. They don't pay rent for a building that's got low carbon emissions, strictly speaking. They pay rent for a building that they're conditioned now to anticipate delivers or low carbon emissions. So that's the reality of the market. Slowly but surely that will change, and you see GRESB, and you see CREM, you see neighbors, you see these operational energy in use metrics becoming more and more uh, uh, recognized, especially by investors. And so over time, the EPC either will step up and start to match the reality, or it will become, as you say, a commoditized irrelevance. But until then, we have to recognize that real estate companies need to make money, and they're not going to make money if they don't have tenants, and they won't have tenants if they aren't delivering what tenants are looking for. So that's a challenge, and there's a gradual, especially the UK. I have to say, I'm in Ireland. I'm an EU observer in a way to what's going on in the UK. But the traction for neighbours, the new, well, previous, the UK GBC LETI targets, now the new UK what is it, low carbon building standard. They're all great trends. I heartily applaud them. Love to see them getting some traction beyond the British Isles. But so it's there's definitely a move in the right direction over time. It'll probably be a bit late. There'll be a big panic for 2030 as people realize, gee, we've spent all this money on improved EPCs, but we're just not getting national reduction in carbon emissions. So that's the reality. Of course, beat the drum. But from our own perspective and from so many other company perspectives, reduced carbon emissions reduces costs. It's a pretty attractive UPC. You're gonna hit some good metrics in your CRAM and your GRASP, but you're also going to cut your costs. Now, your tenants probably don't care too much about the costs, but owner occupiers, that's a really attractive UPC for the landlord's tenant side of things. It's more of a cooperative conversation, but it's also an attractive conversation. The other thing as well is if you can say to people, look, you don't have to rip out the tech in your building that's right there. You can optimize it. I mean, we're going into buildings. We never get low-hanging fruit, let me add, because if you're paid for savings, people go, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But first of all, we'll get the easy stuff ourselves. We're not handing you money that's easy. So we only go into good buildings. We've gone into a university building that was bang on the curve for its 2030 target, bang on. And by optimizing its HVAC, we reduced total building consumption by 47%. Now that's attractive for owner occupiers. 47% reduction in your utility bills per year. So that argument is persuasive. And the more case studies you have, the more word of mouth that you have, of course, you're going to get momentum.
Of course you are. So listen, one of the things that, we're very much a data-driven organization, but one of the frustrations I've got is the noise surrounding the use of data. The amount of times I've heard people say, very sensible and very intelligent people in debates and roundtables, they say, we need more data points. I'm sitting there going, no, we don't. We need less. What we need is insight, right? No one cares about it. We all think that we need all this data so that we can go and do a pivot table on an Excel spreadsheet and do stuff ourselves. AI, machine learning, or deep learning, large language models, we now don't need. What we need is insight. Tell me what I need to know. Don't make me go out and look for it. Because half the time we don't know what we're looking for. So one of the things that I'm interested in is we need more insight. How do you feel about that?
Oh, totally. When we go into a building, I mean, a recent project we did, we had access to 9,000 data points. We only needed about 800 to control the building, really, really well. And so, of course, you need data, and you can't go into a building and really do what we do, for sure. You can't do it without the data. But you need access to the data, and you need it correctly labeled. I mean, the amount of times we've gone into projects and gone, okay, there's data, that's what it says, but I have no idea what that means. So there's an awful lot of sifting through data so that you're using the right data point and that it's actually what you think it is. But without the data, you can't do the project, so it's a kind of there's no way around it.
No, but I think the key for me is that you need to establish the flow of data, but then you need AI and you need the technologies to give you the insight from that data, not to have an army of people trying to work out and then come up with 17 different answers. So I see what you're saying. Of course, when you talk about it, because you're in the same type of area as that, so you go in a distribution board, you're trying to identify AHUs, chillers, VRV units, whatever, and you switch off the three-phase VRV unit to find the landing unit goes off.
Mm.
You're up against it straight away. And you think,
Yeah.
wait a minute, these guys have had their energy certificates issued. They've done their EIC, EICs,
Mm.
to look at all of but yet it's still wrong, and it's been wrong for years. But these are challenges that we face, as you say. There needs to be a lot of cleansing, if you like, before we
Yeah.
actually get into the real thing.
And let me add, where we can, take the human out of it. So, you're always going to have turnover in your facilities team. Some will be quite expert, some won't be so expert, and they'll do quick fixes and the like. Far better to have, I mean, in our case, algorithms that are running 24/7, producing optimized control commands. Facilities teams don't have to worry about whether they know exactly how to manage a pump or whatever. They'll get still hot cold calls, but they'll get way less, and they'll find it easier to fix them. So yeah, where you can automate and let facilities teams work on stuff that automation can't do, it's better for everyone.
The second that you are sending commands to instruct or to change or to move a state, uh, brings massive challenges for institutions on you're not touching my equipment unless everything is within my own safe environment, because the risk of cybersecurity and people switching stuff on that shouldn't be switching stuff on, blah, blah, blah. How have you overcome that?
Well, we basically work with the client in every case. So obviously, we didn't specifically say it, but our solution is delivered on the cloud. So we need internet access in order to make changes, provide visualizations for the facilities team. So that's no small thing. We've gone into some companies that are hyper secure, conscious about, and to have your HVAC system on your internal, you know, internet system. It's actually a bad idea, but it does happen in a number of companies. And so we would go in. We've even had a situation where we were issued equipment by the company so that we ran everything on their equipment so that they, it's behind their firewall, but it's their equipment and we're authorized users of it. So we find ways. We absolutely know that's an issue. And then the other issue, of course, is the facilities team. They go, sorry, we're responsible for this. We're the ones who get the phone call if something goes wrong. And yet you're taken over entirely. For facilities managers, they have to have confidence that what you're doing isn't going to come around and bite them in the butt afterwards. They have to know that you're improving their situation, making life easier for them, and that everything's safe. Same with the IT people; they don't want to get into serious trouble with their superiors because they let something in that they should have been very diligent about, and we know that, and so we work with them on both counts, and we've done it. We've got some plenty of examples about how we follow protocols for both concerns.
It's interesting because we face the same challenges, except I get really frustrated because we're saying to the FM teams exactly that, and they're saying, no, we want it. Don't worry, we'll pressure the IT team. It then gets escalated to the C-suite who say, you
Mm,
do not override IT. They are not using our Wi-Fi network. If you want to get near it, you have to go onto 4G routers, blah, 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 blah. Where the IT team, despite what incredible opportunities it brings the client and the business and the FM teams,
yeah,
they're still shut down. And one of our biggest clients is probably the largest IT provider in the world, with their head offices in Singapore. It took us nearly 2 years to get their IT team to. So it's one of those things that
yeah.
says it's another barrier. It's another reason why things are moving so slowly. So many sectors, or many people in our sector certainly, still see net zero as a cost, right? We tapped on this a little while ago, rather than an investment. So how do we change the mindset? How do we get people to realise that, unless you're suggesting it's only through the benefit of return on investment?
That's the strongest argument. Return on investment. There's no doubt about it. There's more, of course. Increase on asset value. You get your building creme aligned, I think is the term that's used now. You get your building creme aligned, it becomes a much more valuable building. Now, if you're not planning to sell, then you don't care about that. But a lot of real estate companies do want their assets to increase in value for maybe exiting down the road. So there's that. The other one that's really quite big from our perspective is if you reduce the heating and cooling load on a HVAC system, then the life of that HVAC system is extended. The amount of maintenance is reduced. So maintenance costs and replacement costs are reduced. We don't price that into our fee, but there's financial advantages all over the place where you've got efficiencies and elimination of waste. So CFOs may well be making the decision for sustainability initiatives more than the CSO,
Mm.
because we need to cut our costs, we need to cut our operational costs. In fact, it's the CFO who now has to do the sustainability reporting alongside the financial
Of course.
reporting.
Of
And
course, yes.
so,
Of
so
course,
you're
yeah.
hitting good metrics, you're cutting costs, and it makes sense for them. But if it's not a 3 to 5 year payback, just at the moment, 3 to 5 year payback, I've been told over and over, that's kind of the one that will get your attention. If you're saying 8 to 15 year payback, it's it's not back of the queue, but it's not that immediate.
Well, that's a risk. That's to a
Yeah,
CFO. That's a risk profile.
yeah,
That's not an opportunity. But
yeah.
so listen, I want to throw in a curveball here
All right.
now to JP, right? Only because it's my own experience and because my background is I'm a refrigeration, air conditioner, HVAC engineer all my
Yeah,
life, so I understand the intricacies of all of it.
good.
So here's a curveball. So you go into a building, and that one of those building measurements are this is what I've been spending on energy for the last year, 2 years, 3
Yeah,
years. You go, great. So we've got some form of benchmark. You go into optimize to find that 40% of their equipment is non-operational and they didn't know it. So the first thing you got to do is get it operational. And once you get it operational, you've just increased consumption.
yeah, yeah. We really know HVAC. So, if we're prepping for a project, I think we'd identify what's operational, what's not operational. We have been in situations where we're doing a project and we're saying, you've been delivering really bad air quality for a long time. You've not pumping enough air into the building. Now, if we're going to come in and deliver you an optimized HVAC system, it's going to be one that is safe for your employees. So, sorry, you're going to have to pump more air in there, and we'll make that clear up front, and we'll hopefully get that built into the benchmark as some kind of a manageable financial metric. But you know what? So far, as I said before, we haven't been given any projects in shabby buildings because we get paid for savings and people don't want to give us easy savings. So far, and also early adopters, they're usually very good companies who've gone as far as they can go, and they're going, we're not there yet. What else is out there? So I haven't faced that situation, but I'm pretty sure long before we would actually move forward in the project, we'd have well identified what's working and what's not working.
What do you think the elephant in the room is when it comes to PropTech? What aren't people talking about?
Well, the elephant in the room, as we've already talked about, for me, is the EPC. It's really getting in the way of a good net zero journey. I mean, it's important. It's a help. The better the asset, the better the optimization you can get from that asset. But getting A rated and thinking job done is like buying a Ferrari and thinking you'll get to work faster in rush hour. It's just it, it's a great car, but there's more going on here. Um, so that would be the elephant in the room for me. Um, Everything else is just fairly common sense market challenges. There's a lot of nuance. It is a risk averse industry, but margins are pretty small. Of course, it's risk averse. You make a mistake and you lose 2%. Well, you're in big trouble. 5% is nice, 3% isn't nice. So you need to be careful. You also don't want to be the idiot who did something that made things worse.
But I guess by the same token, it's Einstein's theory that do you honestly think you can keep doing the same thing and expect a different result?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you
yeah,
want a different
yeah,
result, you've got to do something different, right? And
yeah.
and and we all say, oh, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and the next morning we go, where are we going for a free lunch? We just keep doing this.
Yeah.
We're creatures of habit, aren't we? But so if you could wave a magic wand, if you had this beautiful Harry Potter wand, right, and you could wave this magic wand and just solve one of the what you believe are the biggest challenges in the industry, what would it be?
Hmm. Biggest challenge. Well, I've already said, the tech is there. Um, What pops into my head actually is public procurement is never good with innovation. Now, I realize this is pie in the sky, but if public procurement processes could tender in a way that innovation can be part of the tender definition, then you'd have a huge acceleration in the biggest client on the planet. So I guess if I could wave a magic wand, that would be it. I get the challenges that they have. Of course I do.
You're
We,
far too polite.
but if that's not resolved, I mean, so for example, public buildings have more aggressive targets than private buildings, and yet they're less in their procurement processes. They're less able to achieve those targets because absolutely, it does need innovation. It does need new. It does need different to be achieved. So that's the thing that pops into my head at the moment. And we don't even touch public
Okay.
at the moment because we'd be wasting our time.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't get. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's banging your head against the wall, isn't it? And I think one of the things that every party has said in a political arena is that there are huge areas we need to learn from the private sector, but they create their own barriers, and that's the challenge, right? So looking ahead, what gives you the most optimism about the path to net zero? I mean, you're obviously excited about what you're doing, but what do you think gives you the most optimism on our journey? Where we are on that journey, the speed of the journey, it's as the train even left the station.
I guess it's those two things I mentioned earlier that excite me. AI, the possibilities of AI for accelerating innovation, and the number of young people who are coming out with relevant qualification, really, I mean, they don't have experience, but they sure know stuff. And this has been a pretty rapid turnaround for an industry that's around for thousands of years, this whole sustainability focus. So we need these new, young, um, quite motivated. I mean, it's their planet. So they're coming out with really good qualifications, really good motivation, guided by those ahead of them in the industry to enable, to give access, to really help them hit the ground running. I think there's great opportunities there.
Good. I agree. And I think it's another love saying I love when you address any audience that are into tech and innovation. And of course, you've got the youngsters coming through. And of course, you've got, us oldies as well. And one of the biggest questions you hear from those people that are perhaps not familiar with, I don't want to sound condescending, but not familiar with the power of AI and large language. And they'll say, will AI replace me? And I love to say, no, AI will never replace you, but somebody using AI will. So, you need to be on the journey, right? So switching away from your speciality of the of energy optimization, I'm now going to ask you the final question as we wrap up, which is really going to hopefully jump into you as an individual. What one piece of advice would you give an executive or an entrepreneur who sees a new way of approaching their business or a new way of solving a problem that is nervous about becoming a disruptor? What advice would you give?
They have an idea. It's because they're good at what they do. Of course, they're not going to know every single thing about starting a business or bringing a product to market or anything like that, but they have an idea. And it's just a question of perseverance. Don't try and do it by yourself, but do persevere. Every challenge is an opportunity. Every setback is an opportunity. If you are finding setbacks, so are others. And if you can handle those setbacks better than others, you're going to do well. But you have an idea. That means you know what you're about. You're smart. You're an opportunist. You're an entrepreneur. Give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody asked me that question a couple of years ago on a podcast. They said, what one piece of advice would you give? I said, go and buy a pair of Nike trainers. They said, why is that? I said, because the logo is just do it.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Give it a go.
Anyway, good. All right, listen, JP, it's been fantastic talking to you.
you.
Please come and see us on our stand. We're on the ground floor. Our product is Mindset. So it'd be great to catch up on a stand and chew the fat and maybe have a beer. when it's appropriately timed to do so, not at 11 o'clock in the morning.
No.
But yeah, it'd be great to catch up and meet face to face. And I really appreciate the time you've taken to come and talk to me today. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Oh, what a great conversation that was with JP, and for taking the time to talk to me today. A couple of things I really, I guess, linked on to was something that I'm passionate about, and he clearly was passionate about, and that is the validity of energy performance certificates. Now, we all know we need them. We all know we're trying to give tenants A ratings, but do we actually believe that it's an A rating? And when do we actually understand that it delivered an A rating outcome, as opposed to us just living off the fact we got this certificate? And that's not to poo-poo EPCs as a principle, it's just to recognise that, maybe we're getting some stuff wrong. Maybe we need to focus more on output rather than input. And of course, the challenges that we face when we're trying to help industries improve and get better and get faster and innovate, yet we still hit some of these incredible barriers about joining an organisation's network or using an organisation's network, when all we're trying to do is give them information that will elevate what they're trying to do. But there seems to be all these what we would class as unnecessary barriers. So it is one of the challenges that innovators face, and certainly tech innovators, because we need the internet, we need the cloud. That's how we do our magic. And we just got to get people to realise, and organisations to realise that they need to facilitate that and work with us, as opposed to sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes against us. If you would like to know more about the work we're doing at Cloud, please visit our website at cloudfmgroup.com or follow us on LinkedIn. All the links are in the show notes in this episode. You can also find out more about the podcast and my guests at jeffdewing.co.uk/podcast. A big thanks to my colleague Nicola Crawshaw at Cloud and to my production team at What Goes On Media. See you soon.